Welcome to Origin Stories. I'm RD.
I'm Parrot.
We're telling stories behind the digital art revolution.
Each week we interview top artists
and live stream with the community.
Let's go. Today is tomorrow's origin story.
Justin Maller, welcome to Origin Stories.
RD, thank you for having me, sir.
It is an absolute pleasure, and I just got done telling you off air, and now I'm going to fess up to the people. I was late. I was just late, and I'm starting to get it, and I believe I understand now, and I've been looking forward to this origin story for exactly that reason, because I feel like there may be some other people who are late to comprehending exactly who you are as an artist and an individual. So why don't we start here? What,
sure.
Justin, your origin story?
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you or anyone else for being late on it. It's because, like I said offline, I've been very quiet these last few years, and especially since the birth of the crypto art scene. There, like until my drop came out about 2 weeks ago, there wasn't a lot of output for me to see. So it doesn't surprise me that people who are just getting excited and immersed in this world in the last couple of years aren't super familiar with me or my work. It makes sense. But I was definitely there for what came before. I mean, I feel like digital art was the precursor to crypto art, right? It seems to be the foundation that crypto art is launching for. And I was there for that stuff. That's my origin story. I was there for a lot of the digital art stuff. Certainly not the beginning. I mean, digital art has been happening in various formats for, decades and decades. But I think that when digital art really started to take off was when, internet culture meshed with when digital communities meshed with digital art is when things really started to take off, when people were able to connect through the same technology that they were using to create with communities like Deviant Art, around the 2001 era. I think that was a real ignition point for digital art as a medium, and it's not a coincidence. Culture is nurtured by community, I think, and that's something that we're seeing really strongly in the crypto art thing now, where there's a community building very, very swiftly because social media facilitates that so beautifully. And that's what Deviant Art and the early communities were for digital art around the turn of the century. There was some amazing stuff happening beforehand. I could tell you old man stories about hell.com and all these great art sites where I found Joshua Davis and when he was doing Once Upon a Forest and what have you. But for me, it really started to boom around, 2001, Deviant Art. That would have been the beginning of the origin.
Take us back. Give us a few stories about how that began and your early involvement there.
Sure. So I got my first copy of Photoshop 1998. A friend burned it for me. I stole it. Sorry, Adobe. We're cool now, but I was a kid and it was expensive. And I started dicking around with it. It was tough. Photoshop has an extremely steep learning curve. And I promise you, in 1998, when you're a 14-year-old kid with no internet in Melbourne, Australia, the learning curve is even steeper. You make a lot of gradients. That's what you do. You make a lot of canvases with a lot of gradients. But I was really, really getting into it. I went to hell.com because I was, 15 or whatever in 1999. And that was a site you actually had to work to get into. They had a feed where they were sharing art projects, specifically digital art projects. But to get there, you had to read the source code and follow a link and click a graphic you couldn't see and do all this sort of shit just to circumnavigate what was deliberately an obfuscating UI, and then you'd get in there and there'd be all these crazy weird projects. I was so into it. So Joshua Davis, PlayStation, who's still creating, is in the NFT space now, had a project called Once Upon a Forest, which he made in Flash, and it would update, however it was monthly or however long it was, but he would have these beautiful just worlds, really similar to what crypto art is now, just loops you could sit there and be immersed in and watch. And this was 1999 with Flash. I'd never seen anyone creating for the sake of it in that program. And that really sort of woke me up. So I started, doing more and more of the digital art stuff. I got some bad Photoshop plugins like Eye Candy and, so I was making terrible stuff, and now I was making terrible stuff that I could set on fire. So that was much better, But yeah, so I found DeviantArt 2001. It started August 2000. So, in the Grassetti of the DeviantArt world, I'm late because I joined in June 2001. I'm not a true OG on the site. But that was when my interest really got piqued, when I was able to start sharing stuff and getting feedback from other people. Like, because I'd show my friends, like I'd doctor photos from our parties and stuff, and they'd be like, "That's cool," but like, and they were lovely, and that's great. But there was no one else who was actually using Photoshop who I could connect with on a creative level. So finding that on DeviantArt was huge, and I started just making art all the time. So in Australia, your final year of high school is the year that counts, right? So here in America, in your senior year, you get to just goof off and dick around, right?
Right.
In Australia, that's the year that decides, your scores, which decide what university courses you can get into and whatever. So I was going to a really demanding school academically, Melbourne High School, and the expectation was that I was going to really, work very, very hard, which I did, but I also stayed up really late making art all the time. And at the time, that probably wasn't the smartest decision, but it paid off, right? This is all worked out. Yeah, but at the time, might have been a kind of sketchy decision.
So it sounds like your experience then is you get what's happening now. You get the all hours of creation and mixing and matching with the client work or school or somewhere in between.
Absolutely. I wrote something about this the other day. I wish I could remember exactly how I wrote it, because when I have time to edit my copy, I can sound quite intelligent. Time to time, it's when I open my mouth we have the problem. But I think I said something to the point of that when creativity is able to spark off innovation, you get this real electricity in the air, and you're absolutely seeing it right now. There's so much interconnectivity going on between collectors and artists and other collectors and platforms, and there's this meta and culture emerging really quickly. And right now there's a great deal of hype around it as well, in a way that there wasn't in the digital art scene. But what is beneath that hype is culture, and the culture is real. And the culture was real then too, and the synergies are impossible to miss. It's what it is it's the same creativity that was there then, with a new advent of technology, which is enabling interaction and communication, and for the first time, ownership, being able to have a real stake in this as an observer. It's all well and good to appreciate art and favorite or like art or do whatever you want to do on the internet, but you can finally have a stake, and you have a stake in these artists and their careers and their success. And that is why I think we're seeing this astronomical boom in interest in this space right now.
It makes a lot of sense. Now, are you experiencing feelings of deja vu when you see certain things? Does it flash you back to certain times and certain similarities?
The energy is what takes me back. Just this tremendous excitement to be creating and collaborating and exploring again is definitely reminiscent of the early days of digital art. So, I started DepthCore in 2002, which was a big art collective. If you were involved in digital art, and especially if you were involved in the 3D and abstract aesthetic that is actually very directly informing what's very popular in crypto art right now. If you were involved in that in the early to mid aughts, you would have been all about DepthCore. So we released theme chapters of artwork every few months or so whenever we were able to do it, but it was a closed collective, so you had to in a way that's actually very familiar to people in the crypto scene, where you understand that not everyone can release on every platform. That's something that's understood and accepted in the crypto art community, but it was a little bit weird back then where everything was so open. So anyway, we were feeling that really similar energy to now, where there were other like-minded people whose primary desire was to push their medium as far as they could and explore what the technological advances could bring to elevate their work. So that sounds like a load of hogwash, but what I mean to say is, if you look at Stefan, toomuchlag's dropped last night, where he released an open edition where every single person who bought one was able to get a one-of-one generated by the mint number, right? That's innovation. There hasn't been something like that before, where you are able to, get your own take on an artwork, and it's wasn't possible before this technology. And there's still so much more we can be doing with these tokens in terms of what we can wrap and envelop and take and do, both from, a content standpoint, a storytelling standpoint, a mechanical standpoint. We're at the very, very beginning of what people are going to do with these tokens as an accessory to the creative work itself. And, if we take it all the way back to DepthCore, we were just excited that, we can send PSDs to each other. We can collaborate in real time on this artwork. Here's the PSD, get in there, remix it, do something. There's this deep level of collaboration, and you can go back and forth. sounds commonplace now, where you're used to being able to open a Google Sheets doc or whatever and like, work on it at the same time as other people. But that was huge.
Yep.
To be able to do that back then, and that is what I'm talking about with technology elevating the art form, elevating the medium.
What's an example? Well, give me something that you see on the horizon that excites you in terms of use cases of NFTs and where this is all going.
Gosh, I just want to talk about my next drop, but I can't yet.
Oh, too early, too soon.
I got something really fun coming with the next one because I'm really excited about that whole aspect of it. But I think that you're going to see, a deepening where right now things are, it's pretty transactional insofar as that there's a thing and you can purchase it and you own it, and that's wonderful. And I'm not knocking that. It's exactly what I did with my collection. And my drop was just a series of art. But you better bet that this, like what Stefan did, is not going to be the first time you see something like that. There's just an infinite way to go. And especially as you see more musicians and whatever entering the scene, I think you're going to start to see NFTs become more a part of day-to-day life, where a musician can package, the album artwork, which is moving now and can be collected, with a concert ticket, with the album itself, so on and so forth. So, and I think that when they do that, they'll do that at price points that are a little more accessible than the fine art section of crypto art, which is what we're really seeing boom with NFTs right now. There's a whole mainstream market that perhaps sits below that, which is going to bring more and more people from the creative and the consumption standpoint into the space. And that's really exciting in a way as well, because I think that does nothing but benefit the high-end fine art segment of it to have greater adoption.
I love where you went with that. I love that you went to the layer that sits below the fine art section that we're seeing now in the day-to-day. And like the analogy I've been using with people who have no idea what the NFT space is and see a headline and say, Roger, like, what are you doing with what's an NFT? Is, a sports game. It's like the ticket will be an NFT. The game program that you would collect with a little bit of light art and some lineups and players, that will be an NFT. The LeBron James jersey that you would purchase to wear is something that you can purchase as an NFT to wear on your avatar. These are all things that are coming down the line.
Exactly. And that's the thing that's missing from the space a little bit at the moment, is the vanity aspect. It's the display aspect. It's the ability to interact with the content that you purchase. But that's coming. That's the easy part. We've done the hard part, which is getting there to be interest and adoption in digital collectibles. And for it to have started, I mean, NBA Top Shot is certainly pioneering it as well. But for it to have largely started in the fine art realm, embracing digital art is incredible.
Yeah.
It's the most difficult place, I think, for that to have possibly had a genesis point. Yeah. Let's talk about an origin story. The origin story of NFTs having their genesis moment in fine digital art. What are the odds of that?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Justin, you're preaching to the choir. You're doing so at a really high level right now, and I don't know that enough people grasp like what you're saying is so powerful, because I think a lot of people are looking at NFTs through the lens of fine art right now, which is understandable. Like you said, it's very difficult for it to start there, but it did start there. And I think a lot of people are a bit boxed in right now, and not in a bad way. Everyone's vision expands eventually, but they're boxed in there. They're looking at what are the possibilities within fine art? How is the fine art perspective going to evolve? And all of a sudden it's like going panoramic, and then you see what this is and what this could and likely will be. And I don't even have words for that. And you're representing that very eloquently.
Well, it's not just missing the forest for the trees. There's an ocean over there that you're not seeing as well. You know what I mean? Like, think about it like this. If you had an app on your phone, which was a trophy case or something like that, right? And it just connects to your wallet. It's that simple. And it just displays the content of what's in your wallet. And you and I could sit there and just flick through really easily. And you could have looked through my trophy case, I through yours. You could trade directly from it or what have you. That's a layer of the vanity aspect taken care of right there. You'd be able to categorize, put your fine art stuff is here, your sports memorabilia. That's the program. Exactly. There's no reason that couldn't be a collectible thing. Come to every Lakers home game this season, and all 41 of them combine into a super Laker fucking 1-of-1 NFT or some shit.
Exactly.
Trade them with your that's all coming. You know, we are beyond early days. Like, I know it's in the mainstream news and everything, and that's the hype factor, and that's the money and all of that sort of stuff. But we are scratching the surface of what this is actually going to be.
I could not agree more. And with that said, and giving the people a bit of that, I want to pull this conversation right back to Justin, and we left off.
Right.
We left off, right, that's why we're here. We left off in 2002, and let's move a little bit forward, and let's talk about entering the client work world, because, you know, one of the things when I'm doing my own back work and research, some of the stuff that blew me away is the high level art and interactions you've had in that space. Yeah,
I mean, look, professionally, that's been what I've done. I've been and prior to taking the job as the chief creative at Deviant Art, I've been a freelancer my whole life. So if you want to take it back to the beginning of that, I mean, shit, it wasn't a very good career move. We're talking like 2006. If you could see the work I was making in 2006, to be like, I'm gonna do this professionally, another sketchy decision on my behalf, because there just wasn't the adoption of this, you know, quite strange, fairly dark at the time artwork. But you know, I managed to get my first few jobs, and they were relatively small jobs. They paid a few grand. I was able to get a better computer and, you know, play that whole game. But where I really got going in the client world was actually writing. So I went to Borders. Let's date this interview a little bit. I went to Borders and wrote down all the email addresses of all the people who were curating like Computer Arts magazine or Digital Arts or whatever. Got all their email addresses and emailed them and said, you know, I am pretty good at Photoshop. I'd love to write for your magazine. But believe it or not, I'm literate. So, you know, there's a nice confluence of the ability to, you know, do some Photoshop stuff and explain it. And that was great for me because they were regular gigs. I was writing an article every month for a couple of magazines, and it wasn't great money by any means, but it was enough to pay the rent and pay the bills. And I could quit my shitty day job at the phone store. You know, I was selling phones, mobile phones and plans and whatever. And I could focus on that full time. So the client work picked up slowly but surely. I was able to do some, you know, like I started to do some work for like DC Shoes. That would have been around 2007 or so, like a year or so after I got going. Some record labels, some this, that, the other, you know. And it all started to sort of like swell and come to a head as I got bigger and bigger jobs. And then 2009, 2010 was my really big breakthrough. I did a huge campaign for Verizon, which was massive. I did all of their artwork for a year. A really, really large scale job for one illustrator. But yeah, and then just sort of like ebbed and flowed from there. I've been fortunate to work with a lot of great brands in the last 15 years or so. I mean, shit, you name it, I've done it. But there were ebbs and flows. There were some tough times with that stuff as well, you know, like I was, you know, 25 or whatever when I got that Verizon gig, and I was like, great, I'm going to be this guy now and forever, you know?
Yeah.
And that was what, 2010, I said. And then, you know, 2012 was a really tough year. I made not that much money. I was living in New York and whatever, which is an expensive place to live. And my art was getting really confused and overworked and overwrought and what have you. And that's what took me. Did your research get you to facets?
Well, it got me to the macro topic, but I wasn't able to go completely down that rabbit hole. So why don't you tell us?
Sure. I mean, I did a year-long project. I did an every days, right? So mine started in 2013 because I was making this. It was called Facets. You can find it now at facets.la. So that was my year-long project. It's still up. But yeah, I was making just terrible work, man. It was dog shit. You know, I was spending 3 weeks on a piece, and it looked overworked and just awful. I mean, I thought that like the more effort I put into it, the better it would be. But I was losing a lot of like the fun and the joy of creating. And I think you can really see that in artwork. You can really see the intent that's behind it. And this looked like wank because it was. So, you know, one day I just, you know, cranked open my old 3D program. It's like, I'm just gonna make something fun. I'm just gonna get it out today and share it. This was, you know, 2013, so the beginning of Instagram and art and all that sort of stuff on Instagram. And yeah, so I posted it, felt good, did the same thing the next day, so on and so forth for a week. I was like, I'm gonna do it for a month. It ended up being a year. And that was cool. Like, and I discovered, if you make something every day over the course of a year, you're gonna learn something along the way. And I picked up a new style, a very geometric style of illustration that resonated with people over the course of that project, and was very good for me in a freelance way as well. So I have a little saying that I like to say is that, like, time invested is invested. So all of that work that I put in, during that Facets project that was totally unpaid was still invested in me and in myself, and it paid off in the long run by having another whole art style to be able to move to that commercially was very successful.
I'm glad you connected those dots, because one question on my mind was to poke around at that geometric style that is your signature. But much of the work that I found of yours is immediately yours, and I think that's really exciting when you could say that about an artist, because it's very clear that somewhere along the way it clicked, and it was crafted and perfected over time, and in your case over a foundational year. Was that year was specifically when you honed in on that style?
Absolutely, yeah. You can see the first piece I did in it. It was a fox. So actually, I'd been asked to work on a piece that day by a swimwear brand, and they'd sent me over like an asset. It was a photo of a fox or something, like, do something with this. Like, what the fuck am I going to do with this? I'm trying to take it into 3D and do weird stuff to it. I tried some photos bashing at it, and nothing was working. I was like, all right, how about this? And what I actually took was a style I'd tried for a brief I did for Nike a few years earlier. They asked me to do some stuff. There's a Kobe and a LeBron piece I did for Nike, where they had requested a geometric style that wasn't really in my wheelhouse, but I, took it to do it. And I sort of took that and applied it to the fox. So I was like, all right, here we go. And like, just started doing that for a few days thereafter, and realized I had something fun and new on my hands. And it's funny because, yeah, it's certainly fair to say that geometric facet style is what I'm known for and is most recognizable, but there's a huge body of work before that in terms of the abstract work and even the photo manipulation work that people of different eras would probably associate more with me than that geometric stuff. Because the work I did for my Nifty drop is not that far removed. I mean, it is removed, but it's not that far removed from the work I was doing prior to Facets.
I don't want to skip all the way forward. So I do want to get to that Nifty drop, and then I know
Sorry,
you can't. No, it's okay. It's okay. And I know you can't quite tell us what's next, but I want to make sure we get to the present day and then a little word on the future at some point. But just to stay back there, the honing in of that geometric style, would you consider that during that year, was there a light switch moment, or was it more of a blind progression where you're just putting in the day-to-days and then you look back and you say, okay, now I've worked my way to something that maybe I didn't recognize in the moment?
The latter, but without even the clarity that I'd worked my way to something else. Like, I just did it. I just did it to do it because it's what happened when I sat down to work, but it was definitely blind, just fumbling around in the blind, in the dark rather. And then it wasn't until later when I started to like get these, my freelance career really picked up after that, and it was off the strength of that Facets project, which was also quite widely seen. It was pretty popular in the tech YouTube community. So a whole bunch of people who are now friends of mine, like NKBHD, Lou from Unbox Therapy, Austin Evans, etc., were using my work in their videos and what have you. Another instance of when the digital when technology enables a medium to meet a platform, So I made it digitally, and it was being shown in these videos to be used on digital devices and what have you, right? So, the work got a fair bit of visibility, and then all of these briefs started to come in requesting that style. And that was when I was like, oh, okay, this is really what I'm going to be pushing it. And it made a lot of sense because that style is a lot more commercially viable than some of the stuff I was doing previously.
Sure.
And it was also a little, not ahead of the curve. It's not a super revolutionary style or anything, but I was one of the first to adopt that. But some people call it low poly. You really need to look how many goddamn polygons are there. Okay, there's nothing low poly about it, right? But I was at the head of that curve. I'm certainly not claiming to be the first to do it, but when I was starting to do it, I wasn't referencing anyone else either.
Sure.
And it came to be in quite high demand for a couple of years there as a low barrier way for brands and agencies and what have you to bring an artistic touch to a campaign that they were working on that wouldn't scare people off. It was inviting while still being artistic and creative and ownable for other brands.
I like just going back to something that you said. Your answer to that was, I wasn't aware of it. It was just something that I was doing. I was just fumbling around and doing something. I enjoy that because the whole premise for your everydays was that you were spending too much time, right? You're going too deep on the artwork. You were losing maybe an essential simplicity to go along with a little bit of complexity. And the fact that you're in there and not aware of that and it's happening day by day is, I think, a very charming story to me.
It's the story of my career, mate. Like,
Yeah.
none of it is especially premeditated. It's just whatever feels right in the day, and it stacks up, and it looks like a series of calculated decisions or a strategy, and it wasn't. It's all just, I don't have any more of a clue than anyone else. It's just day to day making the best decision you can with the information you have and the skills you have, right?
Yeah, and then acting on a large piece of intuition as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you got to hope that when you give this much of your life to something, that your gut read on something is going to be accurate.
You hope so.
You hope so. You hope so.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it has been accurate in your case. So let's walk it forward then. Let's walk it forward through the client work. You established your geometric style. You obviously have landed a number of high profile client gigs or client works. And then you progress closer to present day and you say NFTs. How does that come about?
Well, we're kind of skipping Deviant Art there, and we should probably do that.
Let's not do that. Let's not do that.
Let's not skip it. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, I joined Deviant Art, full time as their chief creative in 2018, and that was a big departure because I was going from the freelance aspect, having done that for so very long. But the opportunity presented was just too great to be able to come back to the site that was, as I discussed earlier, like truly my roots.
Mm-hmm.
If I hadn't found Deviant Art that year, I'd probably be a real estate agent in Melbourne right now. I have no idea what I'd be doing. God only knows. Like, Deviant Art no doubt changed my whole life trajectory twice.
Now, is that because before you found them, you were kind of ready? You were ready for something different. You were ready for something new.
I was 17. Like, I didn't have any particular path or trajectory. You know what I mean? I was a theater kid who wasn't an especially good actor. And I went to school and studied creative writing and theater and art history. Like, there wasn't much of a career coming out of that, if I'm perfectly honest. But I found Deviant Art and I found something I was truly passionate about. And then, I really threw my weight behind that and inadvertently gave, my entire adult life to it. It wasn't a conscious decision at the time. It's just what happened. So being able to join the team in 2018 was huge for me, to be able to make a kind of full circle moment there and come back and help. This was post-acquisition. Deviant Art was purchased by Wix. Mm-hmm. So it finally had the tools to reinvigorate itself and come back as a platform to help other artists grow and to help their careers and creativity be nourished. And to be a part of the team to be able to do that was just too amazing of an opportunity to pass up. Mm-hmm. So that's been the last 3 years, has been, being involved in that as we relaunch and rebuild and create new products and explore that space. But it's a lot of work as well. And so it took me away from creating. And it wasn't until recently with that Nifty drop that I created again, like with serious intent.
How does that decision come about? Your time is occupied. Like your time is fairly occupied, and you're doing something, right? You're tied up, and then at some point you decide to untie a piece of yourself to create and to sync up with Nifty and to drop a concept that was very meaningful.
Yeah, well, again, bumbling around in the dark, mate. It wasn't. Look, I got in contact with Nifty Gateway to do the drop. Mm-hmm. And I figured I would just carve out some time. We had that conversation in October or something, or November even perhaps, to set a date and what have you. I was like, all right, I'll carve out some time to do this. This is too interesting to not explore. This is the evolution of something I care about very much, and I want to be there and see. I want to be involved. I don't want to be a bystander. I care too much about this to just watch it happen from the sidelines. But in terms of making the time to go and do this, that was not a choice. That was, my mum was diagnosed with cancer a couple of years ago. And, she came to the end of that battle with it and told me to come home. That was right around Thanksgiving. So, Australia has very strict quarantine laws. This is all just, you can read this on on my drop page. But yeah, like the quarantine laws are really strict. So I had 2 weeks of quarantine coming up, and I was like, well, hell, I may as well, take my eGPU, which is a big box sitting here. It's about that big. It's one single 1080 Ti, which a lot of people listening to this will be amazed. I rendered that whole collection using one old graphics card. But yeah, so I took that with me into the hotel, and I had 2 weeks there. I was intending to still try and do as much Deviant Art stuff as I could, but I was unprepared for how difficult quarantine would be, and I was unable to really get a lot done on that side of things. But I was, due to the time zone, able to create during the down hours and what have you. So that was where that work got made. The vast majority of it got made in that hotel room. And then the final 3 pieces got made after Mum passed, while I was, in an Airbnb I'd rented with my family. Still just in Australia, waiting to come home, with time on my hands. So not a conscious decision where I'm going to take this time and make this. It was just, it was time I had on my hands, and that's what I decided to do with it.
When you arrive in a very difficult situation, which is, the event that was transpiring, but then specifically being in quarantine and having this time on your hands, which became very difficult, how does that creative process start? Where does it start? Because there are a number of incredible pieces of art in this collection, right? It's a collection with a lot of breadth to it, as well as the depth. So where does that start? Are you working on multiple pieces at once, or do you dive in somewhere specifically?
No, I worked on them sequentially, one after the other. I'd make it, render it, re-render it. Like only a couple of them were right the first time. They nearly all had to be rendered multiple times, and then move on to the next one. So no, I was absolutely immersed in each one until it was finished. I did have to go back and revisit some of them, but by and large, it was a sequential progression. But in terms of the creative process, I'd had this idea of the character in that box, percolating in my mind, just knowing that was a situation I was heading into. I can't lie, I was pretty trepidatious about heading into that hotel room. You're not allowed out, no fresh air, no opening windows, no other human contact at all. On the other side of the world from Jenny, from my partner and everything, and still locked out from all my friends and family who were in Australia. So it's a pretty daunting thing. And I had just that idea of being locked in that room, percolating around in my head. So when I sat down to create something, that was the first thing I did. I mean, there's a reason that layout is what it is. And it's so simple for all of them. I just created a cube, which is the easiest thing in the world to do in Cinema 4D. And then I pivoted the view just from default until it was on a 45-degree angle. And that was the camera angle for everything, like nothing fancy. Because the point wasn't to, and that was the point. The point was for there to be a great deal of simplicity in the composition. So that, like, as you move through the collection, you realize that that's fixed, that room is locked and it's not moving anywhere. And anyway, I don't want to break that down too far. I think people can interpret it for itself. I was pretty on the nose about it,
Yeah, absolutely. It's a collection with one of the very, very real and very deep meanings behind it. And, something that I was just figuring out who you were at the time as I was interacting with and seeing your art. And I mean, how can the story not strike you? And like you said, it's on the nose, but I think appropriately so in terms of what you're capturing and what you're putting forth. And I think, what you're putting forth is, I don't know how you view it, but from my side, it's part tribute, part therapy, a lot of different things conveyed in it.
Yeah, I think that's a good read, mate. It was certainly very therapeutic to make the work. Look, I got to be honest, a lot of my artwork has just been an expression of imagination. If you look back over the course of 20 years worth of work, I mean, I'm very proud of a lot of that work. But it was just me flexing, basically, just having fun, just being like, I can make this, so I made it, and it felt good. And it's like little diary entries where you can look back and think about what was happening at the time. but I wasn't trying to convey any higher emotion, or like sometimes there was a greater narrative, but it was a storytelling narrative, not a personal narrative. And I myself, like I have no personal social media. I haven't had a Facebook account since 2010.
Mm-hmm.
You can see everything I've put on the internet on Twitter and Instagram or what have you, and it's not very personal. You know, it's the art that I create, the occasional thought on Twitter or what have you, and at the most you get a picture of Frank, my dog. There's very few photos of me, very few photos of Jenny, nothing about my personal life or anything like that. So this collection, sharing it like this was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you can view that artwork and really appreciate it in the way that I wanted people who were going to collect it, who were going to, you know, have a stake in it.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted people to understand what was going on while I was making that, because I didn't feel like the work could resonate without knowing. Like maybe it'd come across and what have you, but I think knowing the circumstances of its creation are important to appreciate it. Having that context helps you to really see and connect the dots between those 8 pieces.
As someone
it was hard.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, and that comes through. You know, that comes through. It's both within the artwork and within the explanation of the artwork. That comes through. The difficulty comes through. It's art through, you know, well, art expresses an infinite range of emotions, but this expresses a very particular range of emotions, you know, that is palpable. For someone who is as private as you on social, right? Like you said, pictures of your dog, but very few pictures of yourself or your partner. Was this another decision that was almost made for you in terms of that fumbling around, just kind of, you know, going with your intuition, which seems very strong? Was it just instantly intuitive that I just have to do this now? I just have to put the story forth? Or was this a bit different?
My understanding of NFTs at the time when I released it, and you know, the meta has changed a lot in the last few weeks. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that things are moving at a rate of knots and you're seeing a lot of changes. But my vision for what NFTs were going to be was the vehicle to take digital art into the fine art space. Mm-hmm. And I had created something I viewed as, it's as close to fine art as I think I'm capable of making. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to honor that. And I wanted people to be able to view this artwork and know that it wasn't just a flex of my imagination, to know that there was something really real behind it, you know, in a way that my work has been lacking. And I certainly don't mean to speak for all of digital art. I'm sure that there's a lot of digital art that's been made with a great deal of emotion and personal meaning. But for me personally, this was, you know, NFTs were an opportunity for me to step into a fine art space. I had inadvertently created a collection of work that I felt honored that intent and that potential. And I wanted to be able to be vulnerable enough to share that story with that work, because I think it helps serve that purpose. I think that in knowing that story, when viewing that work, you're able to feel the emotion behind it more keenly and realize that this digital art is fine art. It's real, you know, it comes from a real place of hurt. And I thought sharing that was important. So it wasn't like when it was time to share, when it was time to show anyone else outside of my family that work, I told them the story of its creation, and it helped. I could see the way that it connected with them after I did that. So I made the decision to do that. And the other nice thing about it is that it also makes my mum the center of attention, which she would have loved, always did love. And that felt like a really lovely thing to be able to do.
It's beautiful. Going back in origin stories, I want to draw a link to Nate Hill. And when we were talking, he had a photo, one of his artworks on the wall behind him. And at first in the conversation, he was pointing to it. And we ultimately got to dive down the road, and it was artwork to honor his father, his late father. So just thank you for coming on, and thank you for sharing. Thank you first for, obviously far apart from origin stories. Thank you for sharing it in conjunction with your art. My whole purpose for being here is the story, right? And to see you do that, and to see you be so raw with it and have it be so clearly meaningful was already deep to me. And the fact that you're willing to go deep here, thank you for doing so.
Yeah, man. I mean, like I said, the thing I'm excited for in this space, beyond just how people are going to be able to collect into the future and what have you, is this elevation of digital to fine. And I think that part of that comes with the ability to have difficult conversations and express difficult emotions. So,
and I think as a result of what you did and putting yourself out there in many ways with that, I think that's a collection that will be looked upon later historically very fondly, because I think you brought up a good point earlier. Like, nothing that's said is to disparage any other digital artist. I'm sure there's a lot of I know there's a lot of depth and emotion and storytelling in a lot of different places. This one resonates, and I think people are gonna will feel this for quite some time.
That'd be nice. Mom would appreciate that.
Yes, exactly. It's a legacy. It's a legacy. Give us one, even if it's the most out there, we don't even know what you're talking about. Give us one word or thought about now Justin shifting gears, right? And where you go after sharing something so deep, where you go next.
I don't have one word, but I can tell you what I'm going to do in my next drop without telling you what I'm going to do in my next drop. I am going to just like combine other things that I'm passionate about and care very much about into an experience for people who are willing to participate. So I love storytelling. I love lore. I love games. I love choices. And I love art. And I've thought of a way to kind of bring some of those things all together with this next collection. And I'm really excited to, I don't have another collection like the Second Storm in me right now, if I'm perfectly honest. I can't go that deep again right now. Now, thank God I don't have anything that deep to go to right now, you know? And I don't want to just make another series about coping or whatever. You know, I want to live and I want to have fun and I want to spend time with things that are meaningful to me, that I'm passionate about, that bring me joy. So that's what I'm going to try and do with this next collection, is really bring myself and my interests and the things that I think are cool and other facets of creativity. Like I'm really going to go deep with the storytelling on this next one. And I think it's going to be really enjoyable. I think people are they're going to like interacting with it.
You're speaking my language. You're speaking my language.
When we're off air, I'll lay it on you. But yeah, it's too soon. Like I have this time. I'm not fumbling in the dark. I'm really well planned. I have spreadsheets on what I'm doing with this one.
So Foundation. You decide after the Nifty drop to go to Foundation next, and there are currently 2 artworks on Foundation as of this recording. So talk us through those 2 artworks.
I think there's only one, actually.
Well, I do see One Day in the Big City.
Oh, I forgot about that. Okay, so the first piece I minted was Ghosts 2, which was a piece from the Facets collection that really blew up in the tech YouTube community. So I sold that to get ETH to buy other artists' works. That's what I did. So all the money I got from that, I've just used to buy other NFTs. So that's been awesome. And One Day in the Big City, I didn't realize that it'd be public facing. I minted that and then I gifted it to Code, Boss Logic. Code's a really good mate of mine. He's been incredibly supportive of me entering the crypto space. You know, he got in ahead of me and he's really certainly helped raise my profile in it. But, you know, a little flex for me here. That particular piece, One Day in the Big City with the tiger, is the piece that inspired Code to start making digital art. Wow. So that is why he decided to start really getting into it and everything, was because he saw that piece and he wanted to do it and he wanted to do that. So to thank him for all of his support, I minted it the other day and sent it to him. And no one knew that until right now. And you're digging on my Foundation page. But that's what that was. That was just that was just a gift to him. Yeah, just some gratitude.
I think it's a phenomenal message, and that key piece of that story, that was the image that got him into digital art. I mean, what a meaningful thing to do, to mint it and give it to him.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to just mint something random. I knew he had a personal connection to that piece, and so yeah, it was my pleasure to do it. I'm sure he saw other work that he really liked as well, but you know, over the years, he's told me how much that one meant to him. So it was a real pleasure to give it to him.
Yeah, and let's pull it to then give all the attention to Ghost 2, which is the one that you began with on Foundation. So your Foundation Genesis piece, collected by the wonderful illustrator,
Tim.
Yes, great guy, great
wonderful guy. Oh my goodness, that's been one of the real blessings of this, is not just been reconnecting with other artists and feeling that energy, but connecting with collectors and people who are involved in the culture from, you know, a not as artists, you know, who are participating and fueling and being so wonderfully supportive, but they're active participants. The work that you were doing and the work that Tim is doing and the work that so many other wonderful people who aren't doing drops are doing is vital to its success. Tim and I are neighbors. We found out. I actually previewed my collection of work to him, and we were having a Zoom call, and he told me where he was at, and I was like, dude, that's close. So I went outside and yelled, "Hey, he's right there."
No way.
Here in LA. Yeah, so we've hung out a couple of times, socially distanced outside and all that sort of stuff. And he's just the most lovely and sweet guy. But what I said to him is that, you know, when they write the history of this sort of stuff, he's going to be mentioned with the bid he put down on Mike on Beeple's piece, you know, way back in November. That was the catalyst for so much. Like, that can't be ignored. It's amazing. So I'm really glad to have connected with so many wonderful people, artists, collectors. Where do you place yourself in this culture, Ade? I'm curious, because you are a collector. I know that, but you're doing more than that. Where are you positioning?
I don't know how much. I'll give you here, and obviously I'm giving to the people something that maybe not everyone knows, but I very recently made an important decision, and that important decision was to bring my entire life into the NFT and digital art space.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I will reciprocate and tell you a little bit more about that off air, but to share with everybody, that it was a very important decision for me. I don't take it lightly. I have a 3-year-old and I have a dog and I have a wonderful wife, Marissa. And it's not something that I can just do like I would when I was 22 years old, right? It's a bit different now. So I am thrilled to do it. I'm here to stay, and I'm here to build, most importantly. So to answer your question, an amalgam of everything.
Excellent.
Somewhere in the middle.
Well, congratulations on taking the leap, man. That's how great things happen. So I'm stoked for you and proud of you for doing that. But what I was saying was just meeting people like you and like Tin and like Darlington from Monster Cat and what have you, who is also a creator. But it's been wonderful. It's been one of the best, most galvanizing things about this space, was to see the belief that people have in it outside of just the artists who are creating and benefiting in a way they haven't done before. That all ties back to Ghosts 2, which Tim bought, which I'm very grateful for. And now I had some ETH and I've already spent it all on pieces. I have some bids that are ending right about now, actually. I have a couple of Genesis pieces from some of my DepthCore friends. So nice. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm not getting outbid right now whilst we're gas bagging.
Well, feel free to pull it up if you want, because the question I'm going to ask you, by the transitive property, that the ETH that Tim, that illustrator, bestowed upon Ghost 2 and Justin, where is that going? Do you want to shout anyone out that you may have collected or you may be collecting?
Absolutely. So that ETH right now is sitting on bids for Diego Rodriguez, aka Paranoid Me. So I have his Genesis piece ending in 23 minutes.
Oh,
fingers crossed. David Mascha, who is an absolute legend in the art space and just a wonderful human being as well. I've had the pleasure of hanging out with him a few times in person. He's an Austrian creator and just wonderful artist. I have his sitting there too, and I have a piece from Malta, who is going to absolutely explode. I hope this airs after the auction goes because I am currently stealing his Genesis piece, and he is incredible, an incredible artist.
How long is the auction?
I'm not telling you that. You're going to go and outbid me. I don't have much ink left.
my honor system that I would never do that to you.
There's 21 hours remaining. I kicked it off. I made the first bid on his first piece, and honestly, I hope I do get outbid because he deserves more ETH than I currently have. So that'll be why for Foundation, if I continue to mint old stuff, it's going to be just to get ETH, just to buy more NFTs and support more artists. That's the only reason I'll be doing it moving forward.
I love that.
Because that's not my focus. My focus is going to be these larger drop style releases with real concepts behind them. That's where I'm going to be putting my energy into moving forward in this space. Yeah.
I enjoy that approach. I really like that approach. I enjoy that you're thinking of it in those two paradigms. You know, you have your structured drops that tells, you know, the stories that you want to tell surrounding those. But then over here, you have this legacy, right? You have a legacy of work, and being able to reach back and pull out a historical piece of yours and then put it out there on a different platform with the intent of creating that ecosystem of ETH and supporting other artists. That's wonderful.
I also recognize that that's a privileged position I have to be able to be in, because I do have the ability to release these large scale drops on Nifty Gateway, which was, you know, I'm very fortunate to have that and to be able to have a focus like that. And to be able to, you know, just drip my archive out when I want to play. That's a very privileged position for me that I'm very grateful to have. But I am also very committed to making sure that I am able to keep supporting this space as a collector. I love collecting. I love buying this stuff. It's so
fun,
great.
isn't it?
I love winning the bids. Yeah, it's the best. You know, I have a bunch of stuff on Nifty Gateway as well. You know, a lot of my friends have done drops there, so I've been fortunate to collect. I got a toomuchlag piece last night. I have an Aeforia. I got the 1 edition on one of his opens just through sheer speed. I have a Billelis Greg Mike piece. I have a Mad Dog piece. I have a Fvckrender piece. I missed on all of Blake's opens, so I'm gonna have to go back and spend way too much money to pick up a Blake Kathryn piece. And there was an Adam Priester piece I really wanted to. So there's too many amazing artists having drops on Nifty Gateway for me to even keep up with. I'm doing my best. And there's far too many on Foundation. My goodness, that's a great place to spend 20 grand without thinking too much.
It's very accurate. It's very, very accurate. So some hidden alpha on Blake Kathryn. She has a piece available on super rare. One piece.
Really?
FYI.
Okay.
So I love all those shout outs. I love so many of those people. I'm just nodding along and, you know, I'm like, yeah, me too, me too. Collecting is great, and collecting is even better once you start connecting with the people behind the art, to me at least. And I know a lot of people who have written in feel the same way, and it kind of fuels me along to keep doing this, because it is meaningful across the space, and something I don't take lightly.
It's what we were discussing at the top of the conversation, was that this is an opportunity to feel like you have a stake in an artist's career and output. And that is what is really so new about this, especially in the digital space. There's something like, you know, you could do it before in terms of supporting an artist by purchasing a print or an original or what have you, but there wasn't any access behind that. There wasn't any interpersonal connectivity behind that. And, you know, by dint of the fact that so much of this happens via social media, there's the ability to reach out, form a connection, and see what someone is like. And then when you make a personal connection like this, you have a stake in the human being as well as a stake in the artist. And that's really special and really wonderful, and one of the best things about this space.
It is. No question about it. Justin, you ready to play a game?
Yes, I love games. What are we doing?
We're playing the lightning round.
All right.
The lightning round goes like this. I'm going to throw a sequence of topics / questions / phrases at you. And what I love is your snap reaction.
Okay. So hot takes.
Hot takes. And if somewhere along hot take road, you happen to say, I want to talk a little bit more about this, you're more than welcome to then launch off into that tangent.
I'm pretty good at tangents. I'm sure you've noticed.
Tangents are great. That's what makes this. If there were no tangents, there'd be no origin story. So here we go. Lightning round. Crypto art.
Fun.
Nifty Gateway.
Whoa, overwhelming. Amazing.
Foundation.
Exciting. Yeah, let's stop on that. It's really cool to see what's happening on Foundation the last couple of weeks, where there's all of these wonderful digital artists, people I've known for years and years who are minting their origin, their Genesis piece. That's what we call it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Seeing them get their toehold in this space is really exciting. So that's very cool.
I like what they're doing a lot.
Cool.
Their UI is their UI is great. The colors are great. The seamlessness of the process is great. I think they're doing a lot right. And they're obviously empowering the artist community while doing so. Really, really interesting what they're doing.
I agree. I totally agree. I just want to go back to Nifty Gateway real quick and just be clearer in expressing my gratitude for Tommy and Matt and the whole team there and everything that they do to support all of us. It's life-changing what they're doing, and I in no way take it for granted. So I'm very grateful to that whole team.
Yeah, Nifty's my first find, my first love in the space, the biggest part of my collection. Love Same. Tommy. Yep.
Yeah. Good people.
Good people. Favorite piece of art that is not your own?
Oh, come on. What the fuck is that? Well, okay, hold on. What are we talking, like ever digital crypt? Like what are you doing to me here?
That's the fun of it. You get to decide whatever you want. It's supposed to be a hot take. Don't think too much. Go back to your everyday style. Go back. Don't think 3 weeks deep.
No, I can't. No, I'm sorry. No. What's your favorite?
Okay. Let me change the question.
Say it on the spot. No.
Let me change the question. Outside of the names that you have bid on and that you're working through with distributing that, outside of that, snap reaction. Ready? What is the literal last NFT that you saw that gave you pause, that made you think?
Oh, okay. I have to look this up. Because I just found this artist and I really, really like their work. And they just minted their Genesis piece and I couldn't quite stretch that. I just didn't have enough ETH. Hold on. I think Sia Light, Ronald Kwang is his name. And he put out his Genesis piece. It's just beautiful. I'll send it to you in a sec.
Yeah, please do.
That was really cool. That I was like, oh.
There we go. Better question. That was a better question, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Concept that you have not tackled yet that you want to eventually explore.
Oh, that's what I'm doing for my next drop. I keep
no. Forget that. Go somewhere else.
All right. I'm terrible at lightning round, aren't I? I want to do some stuff with this in the sports realm. Okay, I love sports. I specifically love basketball. I think Top Shots is great, but I'm excited to bring more artistry to the world of sports and sports collectibles in the NFT space. That's what I'm excited to explore.
And let me use that opportunity to say I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And one of the bigger moves that I made was just being blown away by Boss Logic. Shout out there, and the Forever Mamba piece that he put out. That immediately just resonated.
Beautiful piece.
Unbelievable. And to see where that's gone has been a joy, because it just was one of those things. I wasn't around for the drop. I had to come in after that, but seeing it, it just hit me over the head with how I thought that would be looked at down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a beautiful piece, great tribute. Yeah, great guy.
Well, what I don't know. Shout out Boss Logic. Maybe we'll talk sometime down the road.
You really should. He's a really, really just a good, decent human being. Amazing creative person.
And that's what I keep hearing as well. So I love to hear that. All right, back to the lightning round. Which I'm awful at.
Dream collaboration. Oh, come on, man. Same answer. Some NBA shit. I want to do some NBA shit.
Yeah.
That's one of my big passions. I would love to do that. Or James Jean, hit me up, bro. I'm totally down. Let's do an art collaboration.
James Jean doing something, right? Doing something. I just saw a headline today.
His Genesis piece is coming up. It'll be finishing off soon. Whoever gets that is, I don't think you can spend too much on that, is what I would say.
That's exciting.
No, I mean that. James Jean's amazing. I have a whole bunch of his art lying around.
I just recently today I released the interview with Colin Frangicetto, or I always call him Colin Circa, which is his Twitter handle, which absolves me of his last name. But he was talking he was speaking very, very highly of James Jean. So it's been a name that I've heard a lot recently.
Yeah, no, I love James.
Oh, perfect.
Huge fan. Huge fan. He has no idea who I am. But yeah, if I could do an art collaboration, I'd love to try something with James. If you're talking about just a wider collaboration outside of that, some NBA stuff would be fun. And then any of those names who I mentioned earlier and a whole bunch more.
Yeah. How about this follow-up to the NBA? What player that you have not yet depicted would you depict tomorrow if either you chose to or given the opportunity to do so?
Harden or Lillard.
Good choices. Good choices.
Yeah.
Have you heard of an artist named, I'll give him a shout out here, Alexander Van Glitch?
No, great name though.
Yeah. So he on Makers, he that's where his home is, but he depicted a number of, it's great. He has this, it kind of obscures the player, but you could still tell who it is. It's a very interesting, split there. But I have a James Harden of his that I thought was very well done when the trade happened to the Brooklyn Nets.
Nice. The Nets uniform suits Harden. I like it, especially the Basquiat uniform. It's a good one.
Yes. Basquiat. There you go.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Also, the Rockets have the worst uniforms in the league. But anyway, that's not what we're doing.
So that maybe that's towards the bottom of the list of what you'd want to depict.
I'm so glad he's in Brooklyn because I get to do those sweet Brooklyn Basquiat ones instead of those awful McDonald's uniforms that they wear in Houston.
Right. What art of yours is being slept on right now?
I mean, there's nothing out there that you can be awake on right now except for the stuff that's in Second Storm. I don't know if people are sleeping on that or not sleeping on that. No, I don't feel slept on. I've had a lot of love these last couple of weeks and I'm very grateful for it. So I don't have any sentiments like that right now.
Or let me go through my change the lightning round question, maybe to better suit the circumstances. Let me change the question to, out of your legacy, and if there are specific plans that you have, please keep those. But something that maybe you can talk about. What is an example of something within your legacy that you are excited to bring forth at a later date, whether that's on Foundation or elsewhere?
Okay, I have a good answer for this actually. So I'm in a band with two of my best friends in Brooklyn. We haven't had a chance to play since I moved to LA, but I still consider us to be in a band. We put out an album right at the very end of my tenure in Brooklyn, right before I moved to LA. We put out our first album. I'm still immensely proud of it in terms of like things I've made over the course of the last 2 decades. That album is really close to the top. What I'm very long-windedly getting at is I actually made a piece for every song on the album when we released the album, because I thought the best vehicle that we had to promote the album would have been my Instagram feed.
Yes,
so I've made some artwork for every song. I was like, here's the song that this is about. And I think that series is really cool. There's some stuff in there that I think are really beautiful pieces that didn't get really a lot of shine, or no one thinks about when they think about me. And you know what? There's some good ass artwork there. That was some work that got slept on a little bit.
I'm excited to see this work. Now I'm going to have to go back and do another segment of Instagram research.
It's the direct precursor to the Second Storm. Like the way that I knew how to even begin doing the Second Storm was the work I did for Book Club for our album.
Okay. Now, would you bring that forth with music? Would you tie it all together?
Oh shit, that's a good idea. Yeah, I could animate some of that stuff too, because I'm really big on making sure that everything I mint moving forward. Little part of me feels like NFTs should be animated, and what I certainly enjoy the most are animated loops. That's what I love. So I very well may actually mint some of those pieces, animate them, make them cool, and then throw the music behind. Oh, that'd be great. Good idea.
All right, let's go. Yeah. I will say I'm partial to a lot of different styles, so don't take this as this is better than the other. But one particular, speaking of the word I used before, amalgam of styles that I enjoy is when there is a unique musical composition that the artist either solely produced or had a hand in producing. When that merges with the art, that blows my mind. I just feel like it's multidisciplinary. Like it connects the dots. There's emotion. And listen, art that then is that the artist goes and grabs music to pair with it, also wonderful. but I love the notion of there's deep meaning to both, and then there's
Absolutely.
a merger of the two, and yeah, it just blows my mind.
I thought about scoring the second storm, but I just didn't have the time to do it as thoughtfully as I wanted to do it. And I didn't want to put anything out there that I wasn't 100% satisfied with, given the significance of that collection of work. But I actually had, like, I've got a whole setup over there. I had some sounds. I was ready to get going with it. It was pretty cool, but
yeah,
next time.
And finally, if you could instantly acquire any other artist's skill set via matrix chip insertion into your brain, completely painless, and you can have it tomorrow, whose would it be and why?
Oh, that is an amazing question. But I do have to think about it.
Yeah.
I would love James Jean's skill set, because it is so completely removed from what I do that I'd be able to just, that would be incredible. But a part of me wants Raf Grassetti's skill set to be able to go in and do that ZBrush and sculpt like that, because I'd be able to make some mental shit if I could sculpt like that and then combine it with my own weird bag of bullshit tricks, you know? That's a tough choice. I'd have to sleep on that one.
Can we talk about him for a second?
I would love to talk about Raf. Great guy.
So, you know, Maker's Place just did the whole Beeple thing. You know, well, Beeple did the whole Maker's Place thing. He broke Maker's Place, right? Overnight.
He broke it in half.
in half. Yep. Yeah. And then several times in terms of them figuring out what to do about it afterwards. So I was pretty upset about, you know, not having a crack at it, and they dropped my email. I wasn't even in the raffle for whatever reason. And anyway, I wouldn't have won anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, I wouldn't have won anyway.
I wouldn't have won anyway. So that's let's let bygones.
I entered and lost for both of us. It was great. We had an amazing time losing that. Yeah.
Thank you, by the way, for doing that for us both.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah. So I had this thought. Right, I was part of the wave of people who tried to lob bids in the next day, and a couple of people succeeded. Shout out Maddie, DCL blogger, who got in there and actually pried one. So that was wonderful. However, I say, you know what? If I can't win a Beeple on Maker's Place, I'm gonna win a Beeple sculpture.
Nice.
Okay, I didn't win a Beeple sculpture.
No, it went pretty high.
Yes, it did. I had a couple. I think at 2 points in 2 points on the road to what I think ended up in the stratosphere, I was the top bid. And on the second point, I thought I have a real shot at this. And it turns out I didn't. It turns out that it was not in the cards.
I'm glad that Raf is in this space and is doing this sort of stuff, because he's an immensely talented human, and he gave us God of War. I mean,
so talented.
God, I love that game.
Yeah.
And Raf by extension. No, he's gonna do amazing in this space. I'm really excited for him and the success he's gonna have.
Yeah. And speaking of Genesis drops, that was a pretty out there one in the best.
That's a smart choice, man. Dude played to it. Like, you know, he understood the meta of what was happening, and he understood, like, that is work that embraces the meta.
Yep.
And he got rewarded for it. Yeah, smart guy, smart, talented guy. He's going to do real good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, I think you did quite well in the lightning round. We had a few hiccups. I'll take response. I had to change a few questions. I really did. I had to change a few questions.
Dude, you can't ask an artist like live, what's your favorite piece of art?
I know.
Fuck off. That's an
Fuck
awful
off.
thing
Come
to
on,
do.
Raj.
Yeah.
Come on, Raj. Yeah.
Hey, what's your favorite song?
Fuck off, Justin.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. That's what I deserve.
I'll go with. However, I will actually. I'm gonna go and give you an answer, and it's just gonna be a recency bias answer, and I'm gonna give some artist shout outs in conjunction with this answer. Yeah, I'm going deep. I'm going.
So you're shit at lightning round too. This is so many answers. This is so many words. Yes, it's hard. All right, come on. Answer.
Wait. Let me do it this way. Tool, Invincible, JN Silva, ThankYouX. Mic drop.
Nice. Yeah.
Is that better?
Quality answer. That's fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah. I love ThankYouX and JN Silva, lovely guys.
Yeah.
I was actually watching a video the other day of the drummer from Tool, just as he was playing along live. And like, I'm a reasonable drummer. I've been playing since I was 13. Like I can drum.
Yeah.
I don't think I could play a single bar of that fucking song.
Yeah.
Like I sent it to the dudes in my band, and I'm like, I'm incompetent, aren't I? And like they know that actually. So yeah, but bloody hell, he's out of his mind. Good choice, man. Wow.
Those I was actually talking with those guys, and the episode, the origin story of Jay and Silva and ThankYouX will actually be out just prior to yours. So how about that? How about that synchronicity right there? But
Very cool.
we were discussing the musicians from Tool and how talented they each are, that you could listen to 10 minutes and have unique moments with each of the musicians involved. And you have 4 separate things that blow your mind.
Just a camera locked on each of them for one song, and you would just be blown away. It's incredible what those guys are capable of.
Yeah.
Danny Carey especially, like I can't even count what he's doing, let alone get my hands to do it. I don't know what time signature it is, and like the guitar sounds like it's in 4/4, but I think he's drumming in 7/4 or something. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. This is a good way to put it.
Yeah, there you go. But it sounds great.
Yes. Justin, man, this was a lot of fun. I
enjoyed it too. Thank you, dude.
Of course. There's more. There's so much depth and breadth. Those are the 2 words of the day for me. There's so much depth and breadth. I feel like I had barely scratched the surface. I did a little bit more. I think today is a little bit more than that. And yet I still feel as though there are leagues to go before I completely understand your true legacy and what you're bringing forth into this space. So man, I am so glad that you made that decision, or just that you were compelled, right? Not even the conscious decision, let's say, just that you were compelled to get involved, to be here, to share a drop as deep as the one you shared on Nifty Gateway and the story that came along with it, to share the legacy that you're bringing to Foundation, to share whatever madness that you can't share today and that you have planned on Nifty next. I'm here for it all, man.
Dude, thank you very much. I really appreciate what you're doing and the contributions you're making to this whole thing, because like when the hype is gone, the culture sustains, and the work that you're doing with these stories and in getting people to understand the human beings behind the artwork is very valuable. So I appreciate you, and I'm really grateful that you had me on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, man. I hope we get to do this again soon.
We will, I'm sure.
See you, Justin.
Yeah.